This is the way it is. Nothing exists the way you think it does. And yet, by the same token, nothing exists outside of the way you think of it. Take this lake, for instance. The waves, the sky, the horizon, it's all there. To say nothing exists the way you think of it doesn't mean no thing exists. It just refers to a transcendent reality, a reality much different than our experience of it. Obviously, things do exist. There's a lake. There are birds. There's sand. If I walk into the water, I'll get wet. And probably pretty cold too on a day like today. If I roll around in the sand will stick to my clothes and to my skin. These things do exist. But they're my experience of these things. Everybody's experience is unique because of the way they think of things. I don't know what you see when you look at the lake. I only know what I see. I don't know what you see when you look at me, or what you hear when you hear the sound of my voice. But I do know what I see. I know what I hear. It's my reality. It's unreasonable for me to assume that your experience of reality is going to be similar or even identical to my own. We all experience life from our own unique perspective. Now, while that has a lot to do with karma, it also has a lot to do with what the Buddha called the 5 heaps, or 5 piles. He used the word kanda. We use the word aggregate. And this is the source of our problems, our stress, our suffering, but also the source of our joy and happiness. We quite literally decide how miserable or how happy we're going to be. We made that decision a long time ago. When the Buddha talked about the 5 aggregates, he used sand. And he probably did something like this. He made 5 piles. Now each pile represents one of the aggregates. There's form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Now, form is like shape, a thought, indications of movement, indications of color, lines, roundness. All these things are forms of some kind. By feeling, well, I know here in the West we think of feeling as emotions, love, but he was thinking more in terms of sensation. And with feelings, we've got a choice of 3. Pleasant, unpleasant, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Love to him was not a feeling. Hate was not a feeling. There's pleasantness with love and unpleasantness with feeling, or with hate, excuse me. But these are complex thoughts associated with pleasantness, unpleasantness, neither pleasantness nor unpleasantness. Then came perception, which is essentially pattern recognition. The mind reaches back into its history and says to itself, where have I seen this before? Like, there might be some people that have seen unicorns, but unicorns don't exist in nature. So how can we create a unicorn. Well, we've seen a horn before, and we've seen a horse. We just put the two together, and we got a unicorn. We recognize patterns. Then comes volition. And what he meant by volition was karma. What is our intention toward this object that we feel pleasantness or unpleasantness toward? Well, our karma is totally mental. If you walk out at night and a rock falls from the sky and hits you in the head, that's not your karma doing that. That's a rock falling out of the sky and hitting you in the head. Not everything is a result of karma. Only our thoughts are karmic. And our thoughts lead to action. Finally, there's a consciousness. Consciousness is interesting because it lasts a long time. These first 4 pieces of aggregates happen in about 1/25th of a second. Boom, it's there. We see a form, we have a feeling about it, we recognize the form, and we have an intention to the form. Happens in a heartbeat. Consciousness lasts forever, or at least for the life of that experience. And then it's cataloged into our memory, and it arises again later on, even though we've forgotten about the experience. This is the I-thou relationship. When I create a this, I'm also creating a this. We exist only in relationship to other things. When we're not in a relationship to another thing or another person, then we don't notice ourselves. We're not self-conscious. Now, the interesting thing about these heaps is you notice there's little grains of sand inside each heap. That's why they're called aggregates. Within a form are many little forms. Within a feeling are tiny little feelings, and so forth. When we look at a leaf, and Mother Nature has provided one for us, we see many different kinds of forms. We see indications of different shades of green. We see indications of lines. We see indications of brown. I'm holding it so there's indication of weight or weightlessness. I let it go and there's indication of movement. I've seen this before, therefore I know it's a leaf. Because I have created a leaf in my mind that I am experiencing, I have created a me to experience it. Now we take all these together, put them all together, and what do we have? We have a person. This is what we are. A bunch of forms, a bunch of perceptions, a bunch of feelings, a bunch of karma, and a bunch of consciousness, all swirling about in some sort of effervescent existence. That's what we are. It's probably not what you wanted to hear, because you're thinking of the ultimate question, who am I? Well, I just told you. You're a bunch of energy having an experience.